Salinas is a microcosm of the problems that exist in our nation. And since we experience it firsthand and since we see how this is created, it's the idea that we are the experts in this. Like, we know what our community needs.
Claro que es muy importante porque, como le digo, está trabajando directamente la comunidad y la comunidad está al tanto de que se llegue del proceso de todo, y más que nada porque somos miembros de la comunidad, somos los que sentimos, somos los que tenemos los problemas.
I was born, raised, and still currently live in East Salinas in Acosta Plaza neighborhood. And I'd say that what drives me to do this work is just feeling that I am able to make an impact in my community. The philosophy of including culture in our organizing and just in our lives and in our civic engagement was really impactful to me, and it really showed me how cultural awareness and culturally relevant systems are really important for our communities that suffer from racial inequities.
Organizations get funded to do some work and then they pull the funding and then they disappear. And I think we're trying to build here more of a legacy of a foundation and infrastructure so that doesn't happen, so that we're building enough resident leadership and power that sustains beyond any funding. Healing, I think, means a lot to a lot of different people, and we talk about our work being healing informed, and it's really our approach, the way we treat people, the way that we make sure we look at the person as a whole. And so we've been investing a lot of time in creating spaces and circles for folks to heal from past trauma.
5 years ago, this was where in the third and four killings, police killings took place. Carlos Mejia was shot down right here at this corner.
Hundreds of people rallied and marched through the streets of East Salinas Sunday calling for respect, dignity and justice.
It was a pretty challenging moment. It was an emotional release for our neighborhood. And a lot of what happened, a lot of what took place then is really what ignited or pushed to work harder at achieving racial equity. These patterns of law enforcement intervention or law enforcement presence, the relationship between law enforcement and residents of Salinas. You can look at our history, the economic history, the cultural history, the history of the labor movement in this valley, and it can explain to us why now you have a community that's about to be home to a brand new police station and a brand new juvenile hall. For the rest of your life, you are subjected to legalized discrimination. Then there's no way to challenge that.
East Salinas continues to have the concentration of inequities. You have a very low income. A lot of the farm workers live on the east side. You don't have good access to affordable housing. There also aren't a lot of opportunities for workforce development. And if you walk or even drive through the east side, there's a lot less access to open and green space too. And so you deal with a lot of inequities and a lot of chronic illnesses happen in our community.
The impact that something like Proposition 13 had on our schools in this region.
Now, we are watching you. It is your responsibility to make Proposition 13 work by cutting the barrels of lard out of the government budget.
I remember seeing programs, being benefiting from programs during the late 70s and the 80s. After that source that was kind of shut down by the passing of Prop 13, it left a vacuum. It created a vacuum. What does it say about our relationships with our young people, where we want to see our community tomorrow?
Since I was a freshman in high school, I started participating in various community organizations here in the city. And one of the most notable projects that comes to mind is a voter registration campaign that started from analyzing statistics about voter turnouts in the area of East Salinas, which we noticed were very low. Our goal was to raise the voter turnout, and we were successful in doing this by more than 10%.
I think the big shift I've seen is around youth in our community. There's a lot of youth leadership, a lot of excitement and commitment to kind of get engaged in the community. And I also have seen sort of the perception of how elected officials and people from government kind of view young people. And so I feel like there's been a change in perception about young people and sort of their motivation to be leaders in this community.
Our community has shown so much over the past 10 years thanks to BHC, and our youth is literally showing that. It's showing its power, it's showing everything it's got, and thanks to that we've been able to change that narrative.
The group started off with 13 youth, and we just came together and we're like, okay, if it only happens once, at least we did it once, right? We closed down the streets. The city was absolutely amazed, the agencies were amazed. And the cool thing about this was that out of everywhere in the country, we're the only open streets project led by youth. Everywhere else in the world, it's adults, which makes us super special that it's you guys, right? It's you guys putting in this work, it's really you guys doing all this.
Ciclovia Salinas is basically a stepping stone into being civically engaged. It was really inspiring to see that young people are really trying to make a difference. Apart from all of our violence, there are youth that are trying to counter that image that East Salinas has. We have all of the media and all of that, shedding the light on all the negative stuff that goes around here instead of all the positive.
It's just the idea of collaboration and how can we build onto each other? How can we improve the quality of life for the next 7 generations? As I do this work, I think I don't want the traumas that I went through, the things that I had to overcome, or I don't want the feelings that I'm feeling at this certain moment to be felt by people in the future. And what is the point of what I'm doing if it's not to make sure that the next generations are taken care of?
Yo soy parte del proyecto del Plan Vibrante de la Lizal, de la Sanborn House. Soy promotora de salud con CCA. Y ahorita estoy en un inter con BAC, así es que tengo muchos proyectos por hacer. Y para mí la equidad o la justicia es que a todos se nos dé lo que necesitamos, no lo que nos toca. Pues deben de entender que la comunidad tiene necesidades y deben de escuchar la voz de la comunidad, que porque la comunidad son los que sufren, son los que tienen los problemas, y si no escuchan a la comunidad, ellos nunca van a saber cuáles son en realidad los problemas que necesita la comunidad. Cuando Mariluz ha ido creciendo, a mí lo que yo deseaba que hubiera más lugares donde ella pudiera tener actividades seguras, centros recreativos donde ella pudiera hacer su tarea.
Government is making strides to do some investment. The perfect example would be the Alsa Vibrancy Plan that a lot of leaders have been engaged in. There was a lot of advocacy to get the city to invest money in this planning process, and so they added it to their budget. 4 years later, you're actually going to see a plan come out of this. So it takes a lot of time, a lot of investment, a lot of resident leadership and commitment to this whole process.
I grew up in Monterey County as an indigenous woman of color who experienced what it's like to be othered and to be judged just based on the color of my skin. Philanthropy, we tend to develop solutions to what we perceive as the inequities more internally versus being in the community and hearing directly from families, youth and adult residents of what's truly happening and taking the time to ask them what they think the solutions might be. The role of philanthropy in advancing racial equity is really to understand how systemic oppression works and how systems of oppression manifest across all institutions. And that the role of philanthropy should really be first and foremost to examine its history and legacy in perpetuating inequities and structural oppression, and to model that equity to other foundations in the field.
Una montaña, si se puede. Sí se puede. Y eso es lo que quise dar a entender. Interesarnos más por hacer más campaña para que unirnos más, porque entre más hayamos, más fuertes estamos.
How valuable and how necessary it is to have investment in residents. There's no way that this work is going to be sustainable. There's no way that you will be able to create a greater impact if there is an investment in residents. There's a role for everyone to play in this work, and there definitely is a role for organizations to support resident leadership.
This entire country was built on colonization. We're still colonized for this. To this day, how do we want to decolonize? How is that going to look like? Even trying to visualize the efforts that you are placing or trying to see what is the end goal going to be, because there has never been something like that before.